Well, our windows are here, so we're gonna get started installing them, and step number one is to find the window openings since we tie-backed over them, and we're actually gonna cut them out. We're gonna cut a big X in each of the window openings. So we're just gonna kind of feel around for where that opening is. And you can see that this is the corner. There's a corner up here, over here. So I'm just gonna cut a diagonal slit from this corner to the opposite corner. And then from this corner, we're gonna cut into the center. Just like this. Now, these all fold in. The top, we're gonna cut off flush because that's gonna go over the window. And we're gonna staple these sides in and out of our way. Same with the bottom. And then we're just gonna cut this excess tie-back off, just so it's not in our way. We also have to cut these top corners at an angle because this is gonna fold up. Let me show you. We're just gonna go a few inches up on each corner. There we go. And this is gonna fold up. Whoops, didn't really cut it enough there. And out of the way, because the nail fin has to go up under this tie-back, and then the tie-back will wrap on top of it so that any water goes out. Our next step is to take this weird window wrap, tar, papery, sticky stuff, and we're gonna put some down on the sill on the bottom of the window before we put the window in. So what we need to do is measure the length of the windowsill, and then we're going to add about 12 inches to that and cut it off there. Okay. Now, when you put this stuff on, you want it to be about half on the ledge and half in front. So make sure I've got this in the right spot. Go right about there. Okay, so we're gonna just peel this off a little bit at a time because it is very sticky and it can be a big mess if you do too much at once. So I'm just gonna stick that right in the corner and go on up the frame. Whoops, a little too far in there. There we go. Okay, you gotta really muscle it into those corners. So as we go, we're gonna pull the backing off. Really press it on there. Okay, we're gonna turn this tape out to go down the outside. So I need to slit the corners to do that, but I'm not gonna go all the way in to the corner. We're gonna come out quite a ways and slit these. The whole point of this is so that water can't get up inside of here. So what we're gonna do is when we pull this, we're just gonna let that stretch around that corner. You gotta really kind of muscle it. And you see how that stretches around so that there's not a seam right there that water can come in? That's important. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and press this down all around the window. When we get to this other side, we're going to do the same thing. We just kind of stretch it, pull, so that there's a nice little overhang in that corner. That's what we're going for there. So you press this down really firmly, get all the air bubbles out if you can, so that that's on there nice and snug. Okay, so our next step is we're going to dry fit the window, and then we'll go ahead and caulk around the outside, shim it up, and put the window in for real. Looks awesome. Alrighty, well, we're gonna go ahead and caulk around it, and then we'll shim this window up and put it in, nail it up there. Okay, so now we're gonna caulk around the outside of the window with this clear sealant stuff. So I'm just gonna put a nice thick bead of caulk all around the top and the sides. When we get to the bottom, we're gonna kind of do some dashes and leave some space in between, so that way if water ever would get up under there, it has a place that it can escape. We don't want to seal that all the way up. Okay, so now I'm going to place some shims in the bottom of this windowsill. And that's just because we're supposed to have a little bit of a gap all around. So these are going to give that window something to sit on, so we're not trying to just make it float in outer space and stay in place with, you know, magic and wishes. So I'm just placing these in here. I'm going to use 4. And I'm going to set that window right on top of there, and we're going to check it for level and make sure that it's all perfectly plumb, and then we'll nail it in. Okay, I'm fitting the window into here for real this time, so we can't screw this up. I've got Kevin on the inside helping me out. So I'm going to put this bottom part in first. I'm going to set it right down on the shims, and he's helping me inside, and then we're going to hinge it in. There we go. Okay. You want to open that window so I can talk to you? There we go. Okay, so now we're going to check this window for level.
Get your nail in there.
Okay. He's centering it up on the inside so he can see where that frame is for this window, and he's trying to space it about equidistant from each side of the frame. So I'm going to put one nail in up at this corner first so that we have a point to pivot off of.
Check that bottom fin down there. Make sure it's okay.
It looks good.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay. So nail number 1 is going in here. Okay. So with one nail in, now we're going to check level on this window. And it looks like this side needs to go this way just a little bit. Yep, that'll do it.
Still good?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, go ahead.
Looks really good. Okay, so now we're just going to start nailing in.
Check horizontal.
Yeah, up here. Now that that's level, and I know that this window is operable because Kevin opened it, we want to make sure that it functions properly so it slides really nicely so it can't be racked too badly. So now I'm going to put a second nail in on the other side to hold this in place. Now this side of the nail fin, These are not actually punched out like they're supposed to be, so this could be interesting. Just we'll do our best not to kill ourselves here. Now we're gonna nail into every other hole. You don't have to nail into every single hole on this nail fin. And from what I understand, different manufacturers are different. Our manufacturer, the instructions told us to nail in the top also. Apparently that is not always the case. So check with your manufacturer to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing there. So it looks like we've hit all the holes that we need to, nailing this in. So now we are going to take our flashing tape and just go down the sides, and I'll show you what to do with this flap up top. Okay, next we're gonna do the flashing tape down the sides of the window. So we're gonna come up a few inches and down a few inches, and we can just eyeball this, that's fine, it doesn't need to be exact. And we're gonna just cut that off. And we'll get this started. Peeling the backing off here. I'm just gonna place it up under here. This needs to go underneath this flap, so make sure it's all the way up under there. And keep it nice and tight to the nail fin. Just like that. Press it in firmly so it adheres really well. And there's that. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side, and then I'll come back and show you how to do this top piece. In the spirit of keeping everything shingled and water flowing away from the house, this last piece of tape, we're going to actually bring it over the window just a little bit over this nail fin, and it's going to curve onto the top of the window ledge. So you won't see it from the bottom, but on top we're going to make sure that it sits on there just a little bit. So I've cut a piece that's just a little bit longer than the window, and I'm going to peel the whole thing off. Now it's very important that this goes underneath this Tyvek, so I've kind of folded this up here. We need to make sure that it doesn't go on top. Okay. So I'm going to sit this up under here, right about here, and I'm going to go ahead and press this onto the plywood under here, making sure that it's underneath the Tyvek. So we're going to go ahead and press it in, and then when I press it down, I know you can't see this from down there, but it's actually going, you kind of see it over here, it's actually going over the top of that window. So we're going to make sure that it adheres everywhere that it needs to. And since this tape kind of like stretches and bends, I'm not even going to slit that corner. I'm just going to kind of poke my finger in there and bend it around that corner, and that's going to sit in there really nicely. So now that that's all in, we're going to tape this flap of Tyvek down. So I'm going to use some Tyvek tape to do this. Thanks, Kev. And we're just going to go at an angle right over it. I always use way too much so that it overlaps plenty. And so it seals that seam right there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to come over here, bring that all the way down so that is sealed completely off. And I'll just cut the excess. There we go. So that can fold right over. So now this is all sealed so that everything from the bottom to the top, so all the layers fit over each other in a shingled kind of pattern. And that way no water can get behind anything and go up. So the only thing left to do is we're going to put a little bead of this sealant right on the top corners here, just because that can be a leak point. So we're just going to put a little bead of caulk here on each corner. And I'm going to use my fingers to kind of pinch this into shape right on the edges so it seals down really nicely. There's probably a tool for this, but my fingers work just fine. All right, so there we have it. There are our windows. Pretty cool.